Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining me for WLBT Plus. My name is Kara Shirley, your digital news desk host, and I am joined today by the illustrious CJ Lemaster.
Why do you do this? It's not.
Because it kind of makes you uncomfortable, and
There's
I think it's
nothing
funny.
Illustrious about it. Hi, everybody. I'm not subbing today. I'm just hanging out for a few.
Just hanging out for a few. So, of course, we all know that Jackson is getting a new mayor on July the 1st is when Mayor-elect John Horhn will be sworn into office. And CJ had the opportunity to sit down with him one-on-one.
Yeah, we talked after the election and everything. I talked to State Senator John Horhn for about almost an hour. Frankly. And we got to talk about a lot of things, and people are probably wondering, why did you talk to him for so long? Well, there's a couple of reasons for that. One, we did this same thing when the outgoing mayor, Mayor Lumumba, had first gotten into office 8 years ago.
Yeah.
We sat down, talked to him, asked him. We probably had 2 pages worth of questions. And the benefits of being able to do that, especially for somebody new, in this case, the first new mayor we've had in 8 years in the city of Jackson, is this also kind of gives us a bookmark, if you will. It's a barometer, a measuring stick, if you will, of these are things that he is wanting to implement. These are things that he's thinking about. These are his priorities. We look back 3, 6, 9 months from now. Have those been achieved? Have those been realized? And so on the one hand, it gets all that information out to Jacksonians about, and much more, by the way, than just in a 15-second soundbite.
Right.
You know, we had a piece last night that was about 2.5 minutes. We're going to have more from him on the air in our 6 p.m. newscast today. But with your platform and with the digital news desk, you get to see all of it. And it's on our website also too, if you don't get a chance or you.
Well, it will be after this.
We'll be after this. And so I want people to be able to look at this and, okay, maybe you don't want to take an hour to do it. Maybe you don't want to read the transcript. Maybe it's too much. But we were asking all those questions and trying to get all that to make sure that we covered all the bases in trying to get that information to you. I'd much rather have more information for you to make a judgment call on and base your decisions on than not enough information.
Right.
And so we wanted to be thorough.
I mean, and this can even help going forward to the next election cycle. 4 years from now, we can be able to look back and go, okay, these are the things that he said that he was going to try to achieve. Did that happen? Even not even just 9 months from now, like you said earlier, but it can really help to look at his term as the mayor of Jackson.
Yeah.
And see.
And we couldn't ask everything. There were some things that we didn't ask this time around because we had asked them in an earlier interview with him, which the full transcript's also on our website. And I'll make sure, by the way, that you'll be able to, if you go to this story on our website, that previous interview is linked where you can see it too.
Yes.
But, we didn't ask about the Jackson airport because we spent a decent amount of time on that earlier when we asked him before. So we're trying to make sure that it's a comprehensive view. We talked economic development. We talked public safety, crime. We talked a little bit about the third-party administrator for Jackson Water, and what the city's water and sewer systems look like after Ted Hennepin leaves in 2027. So, we tried to give you an idea, a sense of what you could probably expect to see in the next couple of months, and then these longer term things that State Senator and now Mayor-elect Horhn, things that he's really pushing forward on. And there's a lot of things we don't know yet. We don't know, for example, who's going to be selected in some of these city positions. Right. But we're going to be finding that out over time as this transition happens.
Yes. So without further ado, we're going to go ahead and play the interview for you in its entirety. Again, if you can't watch it all right now, you can come back to it later. It will be on our website. You can take it in bits and pieces if you want to, or make a movie night of it, whatever it is that you want to do. But we have it available for you. Here it is right now. And then later on today, it will be on our website for you. So CJ, I'll let you just go ahead, just do like the quick intro.
Yeah. I mean, State Senator John Horhn had a landslide victory Tuesday, 67% of the vote, 78 of the 80 precincts in the city he carried. So that's a mandate. And that is something that, we saw inklings of that, even though he didn't get enough to avoid a runoff in the primary. He then handily won against the incumbent mayor 3-1 in the Democratic primary. So there is a lot, at least voters who came out to the polls and voted, who felt a change was needed. What we hope by showing this to you is that you get an idea of where the mayor-elect stands on various issues. And, listen, if more questions come from that, that's fine. Let us know. Mm-hmm. You can hit me up on Facebook. You can let Kara know, and we will certainly ask him additional questions. This is not the end of interviews with the mayor-elect, soon-to-be Jackson Mayor John Horhn at all, by any means. But I feel like in these cases, when you have an hour to get to talk to somebody, you want to be able to get that information out there and be as transparent as possible. And really, since I'm not the elected official, he is, force these guys in these positions of power, men and women, to be as transparent as possible, too, with their platforms. Don't just give me platitudes and tell me vague things. I want to know specifics. And he mentioned several specifics in this interview.
All right. Here you go, the interview with Mayor-elect John Horhn.
So I wanted to ask you, we've seen two different types, and there's probably more than this, but just for the sake of this question, different methods when it comes to establishing the tone of an administration. You have those who may come in and observe the system the way it is, with those department heads and such in place, and then make changes. But then you have some who may come in and clean house immediately. Which of those kind of describes how you plan to govern when you come into office July 1st?
Well, I think we'll be looking at a hybrid of those two. We're not going to clean house right away. There will be, of course, changes that we'll be making at some of the key positions. Throw everybody out on day one. There will be some observation, and I like the old work axiom of MBWA, management by walking around. So we'll do a walkthrough on several occasions just to kind of get a feel for the way things are being operated. But you're not going to see how things are regularly operating if you as the mayor are walking around different departments, because people will be on their best P's and Q's, I expect.
That's right.
In a situation like that. But no, but we're going to just try to be wise and reserved in how we approach recasting city government. There will be some old and there will be some new.
Is there anything specific about department heads that you can reveal right now, or is it still too early?
It's a little too early. We're not even doing any vetting of potential candidates right now. We're going to start a resume process and establish a portal where if anyone wants to apply for a job and they think that they make a good candidate, they'll send it to the portal, and we've got people who'll be taking a look at that, getting them organized and doing a little vetting of the resumes.
We talked during the campaign about what you bring to the table and the decades of leadership experience in the Senate and of course outside it as well. What items do you think that you'll be able to get off the ground first when you come into office?
Well, as I say, we've already been working, and one of the things that we'll be able to hit the ground running with immediately is the implementation of a $2 million early alert warning system for the Jackson Fire Department. We were able to get that done with our relationship with the Capitol Complex Improvement District. And it'll take a few more weeks before we actually implement that, but it's a much needed system. The fire department has an archaic system that is held together by baling wire and bubble gum right now. So the 2 million is going to be a godsend for putting a modern, up-to-date, state-of-the-art system in place for the early alert warning system. The other thing about that is that that's the first project that CCID has funded that has citywide implications. It's not just in the CCID footprint, but this alert warning system is going to be citywide, and it'll help every fire department and thus every part of the city.
Was that your intention originally? Whenever you being the author, or I will say, being that the CCID was kind of your baby. I mean, you and others here talking about this as a way to give back to the city for areas of the city that are utilized primarily by lawmakers and state offices.
We thought that it made sense for the state to put some sort of a payment in lieu of taxes in place, and we would have preferred that payment in lieu of taxes would be given directly to the city. The state didn't see it that way, and thus we have the CCID. And the way it works is that we take 6% of all of the taxes, sales taxes, that are collected within the city of Jackson, outside of the 1 cent sales tax. This is not an additional tax. It's a diversion of that 7% tax that everybody pays on sales tax. And normally, Department of Revenue would keep all of that money. In this case, Department of Revenue diverts 6% of that 7% that's collected. Let me rephrase that. They collect 7% tax, and then once it gets to Department of Revenue, 6% of that's collected goes back to CCID, and it's been used for infrastructure improvements, for beautification, and public safety is another one of the uses that can be made of the money. So that was, I think, initially when we put it together, we thought that the city would have a whole lot more say over how the money's spent. But it's been a good partnership between the CCID advisory board and the city, and I think it'll get even better under our leadership, because we know most of the folks that are members of that board and have a good working relationship.
Is this the first time that CCID funds or things related to that have been used primarily for something on the Jackson Fire Department end?
Well, up until this point, no money of CCIDs had gone for public safety. And so we've been arguing for a number of years that we ought to put more money and more resources toward public safety. And so, yes, this is the first example of our using it for public safety purposes. And it's the first time that any CCID funds are going far beyond the CCID footprint. It goes citywide.
I want to ask you about infrastructure concerns, potholes, bad roads. Obviously, that's something that's top of mind for a lot of residents. What will you do to address these road repairs that may be different from what Mayor Lumumba or other administrations have done in terms of their approach? What sets you apart?
Well, I'm told that there are resources. In fact, I was talking with the Department of Transportation, MDOT, this morning, and they told me that there's money that the city has that they're not spending. that are funded by MDOT or funded by the Federal Highway Administration or the State Aid Road Program. So they're getting me a list of all those dollars that have been reserved for the city of Jackson, and we're going to draw that money down and use it as quickly as possible. The other thing that we will be doing is going directly to the state legislature to try to get more resources for infrastructure and in particular road paving and repaving. The first bill I cut my political teeth on as a legislator occurred in 1995, and I was able to get $20 million to create what we now call the Dr. Robert Smith Jr. The Dr. Robert Smith Parkway, and that's the road that connects downtown to Jackson State University. And we were able to get that money by making a good case that initially we wanted to develop a road that went from the airport all the way to I-220. But I insisted that the very first leg of it be this leg between downtown and Jackson State. That's, as it turns out, the only part of the project that was ever funded. There has been some recent talk about resurrecting that parkway, the airport to 220 concept. We'll see how far that gets. But we'll go after more direct funding from the legislature to fund our road and bridge repair in the city of Jackson. We'd also like to spend more time learning about which roads inside the city limits qualify as state aid roads, because there's another pot of money that you're eligible for with regard to that. And the State Aid Road Program a few weeks ago sent me a list, and I was surprised how many roads. Northside Drive is a state aid road. I never knew that. So we're going to be trying to see, working with the county, what kinds of things we can do to help with the State Aid Road Program. The counties are normally the ones who receive State Aid Road funding. We also have been told by the county and the members of the Board of Supervisors that there has been an interlocal agreement that they have put on the desk of the chief elected official in Jackson to create an interlocal agreement between the county and the city to allow the county to pave more roads inside the city limits of Jackson. For whatever reason, that interlocal agreement has never been signed. We're going to sign that interlocal agreement very shortly after we get sworn in.
I want to ask you, we've talked about the 1 cent sales tax, which you authored, and implementing a master plan for the city, which you've also talked about. We haven't had a master plan really since the Arbor administration. And I wanted to ask you a little bit about the logistics of that. Are we going from the ground up again to create something like this? What's the framework for that look like?
Are you speaking of a master plan that's called for by the 1 cent sales tax? Yeah.
Yes.
So overall, we want to do a master plan, a comprehensive plan for the entire city to map out the potential for Jackson's future growth and development. So whatever we do with regard to the master plan with the 1 cent sales tax, we want to have that incorporated into the overall comprehensive plan. The 1 cent sales tax legislation calls for two things that the commission can do. One is develop a master plan for road and bridge repair, and two, monitor its implementation. Now, I've looked at where most of the work has been done in the city, and it tends to have resided in one part of town. There have been some improvements in other parts of Jackson, but the overwhelming majority of those funds have been spent in the Fondren Belhaven area and in Northeast Jackson. We're going to make sure that the rest of the city gets a bite of that apple as well. And we've seen some road priorities that the 1 cent sales tax commission has put together. Probably needs to be updated But our intention is to spread the money around a little bit better than it's been spread before. The commission does not, in my opinion, have the authority to say which roads will get done and which roads. They provide a roadmap for us, the master plan, and then they monitor its implementation, but they don't have any teeth to insist that you do this or do that with regard to which roads do get paved. I think that right and that responsibility resides with the city. So I think you're going to see this new administration, come with a firmer hand in terms of insisting that we spread the money around and that we are taking more of a direct hand in deciding how that money's spent.
You see other parts of the state, like the Gulf Coast, for example, there's a very symbiotic relationship. Ocean Springs, Biloxi, Gulfport, they work together economically. But for years, we've seen an inherent lack of cooperation between the surrounding bedroom communities and the city of Jackson. How do you plan to improve that?
Well, the Metro Partnership, which was a group, an entity that was founded in the mid-90s, and it included Jackson and Hinds County, but it had 6 other counties, or a total of 6 counties involved in the so-called Metro Partnership. And what we saw over the years is that everybody seemed to be growing and prospering except the capital city and Hinds County. Right now, we don't have that Metro Partnership operating the way it once did. Everybody has kind of gone off on their own to some extent. And in my opinion, we need to be focusing on consolidation of economic development, assets, operations inside Hinds County. We have the Hinds County Economic Development Authority. We have the Mayor's Office of Economic Development. We have Downtown Partners. We have the, we still call it, I think, the Chamber Partnership, but it really is more about Jackson and Hinds County. Mm-hmm. We have the Jackson Redevelopment Authority and a number of other smaller groups. They don't speak with one voice. And especially when you're coming over to a place like the legislature, you really have to speak with one voice. Rankin First, they speak with one voice when they come to talk about what Rankin County needs. Makita, Madison County Economic Development Authority, that's the voice that you hear about Madison County. Now, these groups all have their chambers, and Flowood has his own chamber, Pearl has his own chamber, Brandon, Ridgeland, the town of Madison. And yet, when they come over here, they have one priority or one or two priorities. And those 1 or 2 priorities are what drive their request for resources from the legislature. I believe we need that same kind of arrangement in Hinds County and in the city of Jackson.
I want to ask you about the city budget. You said when we talked last night that you want an analysis of this year and previous year's spending. I would imagine a forensic audit of that magnitude would probably be too big for, say, the state auditor's office. They don't handle municipalities by statute anyway. What do you want to make happen even as that deadline for the 2026 fiscal year is less than 4 months away?
Well, you got to work on the budget. That is a given. But you're kind of at a disadvantage when you come in, you're sworn in on July 1st, and you got to have a budget at the very latest by September 30th. So you come in working on that budget, and we'll come in working on the budget. As we've been looking at a possible transition, the 2 things that we have been focused on in terms of trying to get ahead of the game has been, how do we deal with our bond rating? Because we've got to get those audits done. And we've got to get our bond rating restored by Moody's and Standard & Poor's. We can't borrow money very efficiently if we don't do that. The second thing is we've got to put a budget for the 2026 fiscal year coming forward. And so we've got to do that. But at the same time, we're concerned that we need to know what has been done with the money prior to now. And the only way I know to do that is to get a forensic audit underway. And not just for 1 year, but we'll probably ask for an audit of at least the past 3 years, so that we can look at patterns, we can look at what the city's been spending its money on, and make some decisions that are informed based on the data that we're getting from those forensic audits. I think that's the only way we can start with a clean slate of knowing what we inherited. But also where there might be some possibilities and where there may be pitfalls that need to be adjusted or amended.
You think that could be pricey?
I'm sorry. Yes. It's going to be expensive for us to do a forensic audit, but it's money that's necessary to be spent. We've got to have a starting point in this administration that distinguishes us from the previous administrations, not just this one here, but ones going back a few years. But there's that, and then we want to see who the city's been doing business with. If there are any things that are of concern to us, and we make sure that we address whatever concerns that might come up with that data collection. But I think it's absolutely necessary, and I think it's going to cost a minimum of $250,000, but it's money that will be well spent.
The interim third-party manager's federal control tentatively will end in 2 years, 2027. What will your administration be doing in the meantime to establish ownership of the city's water and sewer systems that's dependable, transparent, and self-sustaining?
Well, number one, we have to rebuild our team of folks running and managing this city. And top of the list is the Public Works Department. We don't have a Public Works director for all intents and purposes. Now we got a guy we contract with. Whether that remains the case remains to be seen. But we've got to rebuild the Public Works Department from top to bottom. The oversight of garbage collections, the oversight of beautification programs. We don't have a chief engineer or any engineer on the city's payroll right now. So everything's got to be contracted out. That means that you drive the price of getting these services rendered up, and we want to be able to manage and trim cost and prices as much as possible. But included in that is you got to have a good chief administrative officer, city manager, whatever you want to call it. We got to have a good legal team in place, and the city attorney's got to be strong. We've got to have a really good planning and development director, because all of that factors into demonstrating that we know how to manage our assets. The HR program, human resources, we got to know what the skill set and the level of skill we have of our employees. Once we do that and put the right team in place, and I believe that there is at the middle management level, we've got some great people, but we don't think that they've been held accountable, that because the folks that are managing them weren't held accountable, and because the chief elected official wasn't accountable. So we've got to return accountability to how we process services, how we conduct the business of the city. And we got to do that first with our taxpayers and with the folks that pay our salaries. And those are the residents and citizens of Jackson. They've lost confidence in the city being able to manage its own affairs and to do it in a way that's customer friendly, that's efficient, that has a feeling of purpose and accomplishment to it. A lot of folks call various departments of the city, the phone just rings. We want the phone to ring and be picked up within 3 rings, for example. And when you get the phone answered within 3 rings, we want somebody who's knowledgeable to answer whatever question you have or whatever service you're trying to attain, to be able to provide that question, that answer to the question, and get you the services you need. You shouldn't be transferred all over the place. You shouldn't be put on hold and folks never come back. It should be efficient, and it should be done with a smile on your face. Where the people providing those services are friendly, they're user friendly, customer friendly, and they get the job done. But in particular with public works, you see so much in the way of grass that's overgrown on the right of way, the city rights of way. You see a lot of overgrowth of bushes and weeds and trees that really make the city look bad. Some of it is on private property. We got to deal with that in another way. But a lot of it is on our rights of way. And the trash situation that's very unsightly, the blight that's unsightly. We've got to attack those things head on and develop a low tolerance or no tolerance policy when it comes to littering and when it comes to folks not keeping up their property. So code enforcement has got to be an important part. We've got to make sure that we've got things properly zoned. You should not be able to operate a car repair shop in your driveway right next to another residential structure where these people are trying to keep their property up, and your auto body and fender repair or your mechanic shop is detracting from their property value and the look of their neighborhood. Yeah. So all of that's got to be dealt with, and I think that we've got to demonstrate to Judge Wingate that we know how to manage our own affairs, particularly as it relates to this enterprise system called the Water Sewer Administration. We've got to demonstrate to them that we can handle it, that this asset belongs to us and we should have control over it. But now going forward, I believe that it would be smarter on our part to do just like a lot of other cities do. When it comes to their water and wastewater, they have a third-party manager as well. Now, but the difference here between what we've got right now with Jackson Water is we don't make the decision as to who that third-party administrator is. I think the city should manage that as the aspect of determining who's our third-party manager, and it be done by citizens who are also paying the bills for that water sewer administration.
I want to ask you about crime, big issue with a lot of residents. Have you given any thought to who you want to appoint or whether you'll appoint someone new to lead the police department going forward?
We haven't made any commitments to anybody about jobs. We haven't promised anybody any jobs. We haven't promised anyone that they're going to lose their job. We're going to go through a vetting process and try to come up with the best individuals to lead the various departments within the city. In the case of our current chief of police, he's very popular. He is Johnny on the spot. He's very visible. He's very engaged with the community. Crime stats are going down under his leadership. My view on that, and this is about as much as I'm going to say on it, if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Yeah. We've recently seen an increase in the number of police officers, sworn officers, under Chief Wade's tenure, which is significant because Capitol Police have tried to siphon folks off. At one time, providing more competitive pay. I think JPD probably has the edge now, but we still don't have enough men and women in uniform walking a beat. When you look at the Maple Linder study, you look at other things, we don't have enough active duty officers working a beat. And the last time we saw a significant drop in crime was when we had north of 500 officers. This is back in 2004. So my question is to you, what do you think an ideal police force looks like in terms of numbers?
Well, you got Capitol Police taking up some of the slack now. I'm not sure we need 500 plus officers. Maybe we do, but I'm going to leave that to the experts to determine and tell us, what is the right size for Jackson's police department. The chief and I sat down back in February, and he told me that there were 262 sworn officers on the force at this time. I don't know if that's enough. It seems to me to be not enough. And so my first inclination is to beef up the police department with more sworn officers above that 262 number. But on top of that, we've got to make sure that our officers are well paid.
Mm-hmm.
We've got to make sure that they're well equipped. We've got to make sure that they have the technology. There's so much technology out there that can help us with law enforcement right now. I think that we should be working smarter, if not harder. And so the use of technology has got to be a major factor that's incorporated more into what we're doing. The real crime center that they've got now, I think is one of the, I've been told it's a state-of-the-art facility. How well are we using that facility, and are we using it effectively to solve crimes? But the other side of that is that much of the resource that we need for the police department is what is outside the budget of the city of Jackson.
Right.
So we've got to have crackerjack grant writers who know how to go after state and federal dollars, particularly federal, particularly foundational. And we've got to have folks who know how to monitor, manage, implement those grants, and do proper compliance so we don't wind up at the end of the cycle having to pay any money back. So we've got to do more professionalizing of our police department as it relates to resource gathering and as it relates to the use of technology and equipment to have policemen better do their jobs. I do believe that there needs to be more uniformity of standards with our sworn officers. When a police officer shows up, they represent the city. They should look like they represent the city. I've seen a few instances where I would question whether we need to have this hairstyle or this facial hair or these types of shoes on. If you're representing the department, I think that where you get more respect is where there's uniformity. If you're a cop, this is the way cops dress. Mm-hmm. A police officer represents him or herself in a certain way, and there shouldn't be any variance of that based on which cop happens to show up.
You mentioned in one of our interviews, I think it was before the runoff, Capitol Police are a necessary evil right now. Can you kind of explain what you meant by that? I'm asking in terms of how they coexist with JPD. There are instances where in the CCID, because JPD responds to assist and they're not the primary, even though Capitol Police can't enforce city ordinances, for example, that leaves a gray area when, say, there's a noise complaint downtown and JPD can only assist, but they're the only ones who actually could enforce that particular crime.
Yeah, well, there was an effort to get some clarity about the enforcement of ordinances in this past legislative session. The bill didn't get through the process.
Yeah.
In the original legislation that created Capitol Police's expanded territory and expanded responsibility, there's a requirement that the city of Jackson put forth a memorandum of understanding between JPD and Capitol Police. For whatever reasons, the city has never put that MOU together.
Yeah.
Now we're gonna put the MOU together so that there is a specific set of expectations that are to come into play when it comes to Capitol Police interacting with JPD and JPD interacting with Capitol Police. We need to be able to delineate that in writing. Mm-hmm. This is the policy. This is what we agree to. The other side of that is that I say it's an unnecessary evil because, unfortunately, the resources that the city police department has are not enough to enforce and ensure that there's order and safety throughout our community.
Yeah.
Capitol Police has been a great assist in terms of that. The relationship now with Chief Wade and Bo Lucky and Sheriff Tyree Jones is better now than it's ever been.
Yeah.
When Capitol Police first came on the scene, we had a different leadership in the police department, probably a different leadership on the part of the mayor who influences how his police department operates. And there wasn't as close a working relationship. Now there is a much closer working relationship. There's more cohesion and coordination and collaboration that exists between among all three of those law enforcement entities. And so I think that's only going to get better as time goes on. And I think Capitol Police is here to stay. I don't know that we're going to see any major changes in that anytime soon. Mm-hmm. And I don't know that we need to at this point, because they've helped to have a calming effect on crime in Jackson. And they've been able to free up JPD to be able to go to other hotspot areas and other parts of the city that are non-CCID territory,
right?
And apply those resources there. So I think with greater manpower and better technology and equipment of Jackson Police Department officers, we can only just get better with our crime fighting.
Mayor-elect, I want to ask you about economic development. Obviously, public-private partnerships work. You look at the district of Eastover. You look at bringing the Weston in. I'm even looking at the Randy Travis buying a portion of the Metro Center, which I don't think was on anybody's bingo card for this year. But it's a chance at economic development. It's a chance at revitalization. We look at Ferris Street. We look at other areas of the city that have been underserved, to your point earlier about other areas that don't get that kind of attention or don't get that kind of funding, those kinds of options. What will you do to help revitalize those parts that are ripe for development?
Well, as I said earlier, we have got to start speaking with one voice.
Yeah.
As far as our priorities from an economic development stance is concerned. And once we can speak with one voice, I think we'll be a lot more effective in going after additional resources. We've got to put together a mega site somewhere in the city of Jackson, if not in the city, certainly in the county. All of these areas of the state that are doing gangbusters right now, going gangbusters, Madison County, the Tupelo area, the area around Meridian, they have mega sites. And these are sites where land has already been assembled. The infrastructure has been identified. The sources of access to water, electricity, other forms of power and energy have been identified. And we've got this situation such that we're ready for something. But we're not ready for it right now to a great extent. I think the Lake Hyco site represents a tremendous opportunity for us. 640 contiguous acres. It's got the water. It's got the access to water. It's got access to power. It's got access to transportation. It's well situated. And it's got to be a little bit better developed, and it's got to be properly marketed. But you look at all these other areas around Jackson, the first thing we got to do is we got to clean this joint up. We have to clean our city up. Nobody's going to come here with Jackson looking the way it looks in some portions of it. If we want to develop these portions that have so much more need, we've got to present ourselves a little bit better, remove the blight, deal with the streets and the infrastructure. Make sure that water and sewer are proper and decent and in order in those areas, and do those basic things. And then we've got to start telling our own story rather than letting somebody else tell the story of Jackson.
With all that in mind, what do you, looking back, hope to have truly accomplished in your first 100 days in office?
Well, as I say, we're going to do that early alert warning system. So, and why is that important? It affects our insurance rates. If we get to the point where we are not able to get an emergency notice out to someone that there's a fire and we need to get our people out to put the fire out, it's a safety hazard, and it affects our rating that the state fire marshal gives to every community. And we don't want the rate, the number to go higher. We want it to go lower. We're right now at a 3. We're in danger of going to a 5. And if we do that, it's going to show up and hit the back pockets of our residents and property owners here, because their insurance is going to go up, and their reputation, just in terms of how we are able to market ourselves, it takes a hit.
Yeah.
So we've got to deal with that. We've got to do something immediately about all these potholes. Not that we're going to solve them and fill all the potholes, but the way we've been doing these potholes is temporary and transitory. A couple of rains later, the potholes back. So we need to make sure we're using the best possible material. We need to make sure that our folks are trained better. And I like, once we get the potholes better managed, I'd like to adopt a policy that within 5 days, if somebody calls in to 311 or however that they get the notice that, hey, there's a big pothole over here, within 5 days, that pothole is addressed and repaired. And in the course of that, I think we've got to come up with creative ways that we can address infrastructure and things like potholes. Is green technology, green bonding, an option for us? Mm-hmm. And by that I mean, can we get financial support if, for example, we use a more energy efficient means of mixing asphalt, or we come up with a product that is going to be more sustainable because it lasts twice as long as what we were using? And can we monetize that to the point where we're able to finance a lot of our infrastructure? So in the first 100 days, I want us to have that system in place, the alert system. I want us to start the process of finding more money for our police officers, more equipment and technology. We got cops right now that can't go on duty because they don't have a car that's running. They have to wait for the guy who's coming off duty to return the car so that they can go on duty. So we've got to improve that in a hurry, mm-hmm. Find money to buy more vehicles and put those vehicles in service. We got to have cars that are 10, 15, 20 years old that are still on the streets. Got to change, and that we hope to be able to do some of that within the first 100 days. And then the other thing, as it relates to crime fighting, even though it's actually workforce development, but I see it as crime fighting. We have an opportunity to clear up an omission that affects Hinds County. We're the only county in the state that doesn't have a workforce training facility in our county. And so within the first 100 days, I want to correct that. There are 100,000 skill level jobs out there right now that are going unfilled because we can't find the trained workforce. And so by putting a workforce training facility somewhere in Jackson, I want it to be in Jackson, not just in the county, but in the city limits of Jackson, because that's where the need is. We know through our conversations with groups like Accelerate Mississippi that's in charge of workforce training in the state, that there's a need for plumbers, mm-hmm. There's a need for electricians, data technicians, cable splicers, folks who know a broadband installation and deployment. And we don't have people who have those skill sets, enough of them in our state right now, certainly not in the metro area. So we would want to establish, it's called a Talent Solutions Center. And we want a Talent Solutions Center where we can train that talent in North Jackson or in South Jackson, mm-hmm. and have it where we can put folks through an 8 to 12 week training program where the equipment for the training, the trainers are paid for by Accelerate, and they even will help pay a stipend to folks who are coming in for the training, $10, $15 an hour for an 40-hour a week, 8 to 12 week training cycle. At the end of that cycle, you're guaranteed an interview. You're not guaranteed a job, but you're guaranteed an interview to someone who needs the skills that you were just trained with. Yeah. So the workforce training piece, we hope to get started and in place within the first 100 days.
What about the obstacles in your path? What do you see as obstacles to being able to accomplish what you'd like to accomplish during your first term as mayor?
Well, there's always inertia. We've never done it like this before. We've always done it like that. We got to get folks out of the mindset that they've been having, that Jackson is going to be the way it is, and there's no changing it.
Yeah.
Incorporated with that is the delivery of this thing called hope. And a friend of mine gave a very simple definition of hope. She said, hope is the feeling that tomorrow is going to be better than today. And a lot of folks in Jackson think, okay, the way it is today is just the way it is today. We've got to get folks out of that mindset because we are defeated the moment we start thinking that way long term. We're defeated. So we've got to give folks a sense that there is hope in Jackson, and that there is a new day of opportunity, a new day in terms of what our city looks like, how our streets look, how the traffic lights operate, how the striping on the streets is there or not there. Just these basic things. It's the sense that when you turn on that water tap, safe, clean drinking water comes out. Yeah. When you flush that toilet, it goes where it needs to go. Those are the basics have got to become usual and ordinary once again. so if we can get to that point, and then I think we've got to really have some wins that give people optimism and that give them a better feeling about Jackson, a good feeling about Jackson. Right now, so too many of us are walking around hanging our head down. Po Jackson. Oh, the Jackson's in terrible shape. I don't know if I want to stay here in Jackson. I got to get out of this place. Everything's going down. We want to have the kind of energy and the kind of optimism in this community where we're attracting people back into Jackson, getting some of that lost population back here because this is a great place to live.
I got to ask you, looking around this room, looking around your office, the 32 years you spent here in the legislature, you going to miss it?
Oh, there's an old saying, once a senator, always a senator. Yes, I'm going to miss it. I'm going to miss it like crazy. I've spent almost half my life in this place. And so, yeah, it becomes a part of you. But I think that what it also offers is an opportunity to take the experience of 32 years, to take the relationships built over 32 years, to take the knowledge that you gained over 32 years and apply it locally to our capital city. And I'm excited about that.
The last question was that Anthony wanted me to ask you this. When do you plan to resign your Senate seat? Have you?
Well, I'm going to hold on to the Senate seat as long as I can. Because, like I said, you're going to miss it. This is an exclusive club. Not everybody can call themselves a senator, and I love it. I've loved the whole experience that I've had.
Yeah.
Both the good and bad. It hasn't been a bed of roses, but it has helped to mature me. It has helped to give me a little bit more character, I think, just because of the processes you can go through. So I'm going to probably resign just before I'm sworn in. And I'm told that at the point where you're sworn in, you cannot be, because of separation of powers,
sure.
Holding that Senate office. So probably 10 minutes or so before I get sworn in as mayor.
I almost forgot to ask you, have you heard from Mayor Lumumba? Has he reached out to you? And if so, what has he said?
I've not heard from the mayor.
Okay.
Once we finished with the runoff, normally you would get a call. We haven't gotten a call. And I think that, there was a lot of bitterness and a lot of disappointment on their part. that may have influenced that behavior. But it is what it is. We're going to be on tomorrow's sending a letter to the mayor saying, hey, we're about to start our transition. If there's anything that you'd like to sit down and brief us on, we're more than willing to do that. And we're going to reach out to them and make that offer.
Okay, I appreciate you. Keep us posted on how that goes, Senator, because I hope that it's going to be a peaceful transition.
The interesting thing in all of this process, the primary, the runoff, the general election.
Yeah,
I've heard from one candidate, and that was Rodney DePriest last night. And he showed himself to be a pretty class act.
Yeah.
I ran against the mayor. We were in the same race 8 years ago, and when we found out that we had not gotten to the finish line, we came in second. Called him up and wished him congratulations, and that's what you do. But if other folks don't have that same behavior, exhibit that same behavior, we just suck it up and go on about our business.
I just hope that it doesn't. I hope that he's willing to work with you in these transition weeks, because it should be a peaceful transfer of power, and you don't want there to be a situation where you're behind the 8 ball even more come July 1st, because you haven't been afforded the resources that you would need to,
Well, as I say, I believe that we're putting together a great transition team.
Yeah.
We will be announcing who those folks are who'll be heading up the transition very shortly. And we'll be prepared in any eventuality of whether we get communication or assistance from this current administration or not.